Well, we have a president-elect, we have a vaccine for COVID-19, and we have Winnie Sun, once again, from Sun Group Wealth Partners. What's your take, Winnie, right off the bat? I mean, obviously, investors love hearing a vaccine that Pfizer has produced when it comes to the coronavirus.
Yes, absolutely, Mike. This is good news. I think, this is the beginning of giving a lot of people hope this weekend because obviously cases continue to rise, but we want some good news. Pfizer has Pfizer has come out and told us that 90% success on their vaccine. So let's hope that it goes to regulatory um, levels really soon, and Americans can see some light at the end of the tunnel.
It's interesting to see that some of the companies, though, are taking a hit. Companies that have succeeded through the coronavirus, your Pelotons, I don't know how many commercials I've seen for a Peloton. Zoom, what we're doing here, also that company taking a hit. Is that just kind of a one-time thing, or are these companies, you think they'll be struggling down the road if we continue on the path with this Pfizer vaccine?
Well, the Pfizer vaccine obviously was a big deal. And so you see the market up huge. And so there's so many names, unfortunately, that are going to suffer because people are thinking, well, sooner or later, we're going to get back into the workplace. So maybe we won't need Zoom as much. I think more than anything, Mike, a lot of what you're seeing today is some profit taking. We've seen names like Peloton and Zoom and a lot of the other names do very well. Netflix as well, because we've been sheltering in place. However, the main thing we got to remember too is we're not above, or the coronavirus isn't behind us just yet. So we're probably still quite a few months away from that. So there's still going to be some names that you might want to hold long term that might make sense for your portfolio long term.
All right, we have a president-elect, Joe Biden, that was announced on Saturday morning, and I was curious waking up today to see what the markets were going to be because, do they like this Biden being president-elect, or do they, and then we have the vaccine. So it's hard for me to get to really read. What are you hearing in regards to investors and whether or not they like, Joe Biden becoming the next president of the United States?
Well, I think investors are looking for closure, and I think they feel that they're getting closer to closure. So, regardless of who you elected, the investors see this as maybe we'll have some clarity of who our next president is going to be. And also, there is the pro of having sort of a balance in that, Joe Biden being a Democrat, but then the Senate retaining ownership with the Republicans. And they see that as a good thing because then you might have a better direction next year, and you might have the powers to continue to keep taxes from going too high. For a lot of investors, they see that as one of the concerns of having sort of that blue wave come across. So they're seeing this contrast as a positive, and that's what investors are seeing. That's why even before the news that came out of Pfizer, the market already was poised to open big today.
Yeah. On January 5th, they're going to have that runoff in the state of Georgia for the two U.S. Senate seats. So here you are saying that the divided government is good, or investors like to see that. If those seats flip, and all of a sudden you have Democrats in power in the Senate as well, we would see the opposite effect.
Well, I don't know if the opposite, but I
Okay.
certainly think that there is a possibility for volatility. Obviously, we're hoping that where you're looking at right now, investors are hoping what they're looking at now is something that they can count on. And we'll see. We'll see what happens in January. But I think Americans right now are just looking for areas that they can feel hopeful that tomorrow will be better than it is today. And you're certainly seeing a lot of that today. And don't forget, this is a historical thing. Like basically, the 4 days after the election, the market was up over 1%. That's historical. We haven't seen that in a very, very long time. I think since the 1980s. And typically, historically, we've seen if that's the case, the market historically actually just does better a year from now, too. So investors are holding to that.
It seems like they like the October jobs report as well, with 638,000 or so payrolls added. Again, something moving in the right direction, and they like to see this.
Yeah, so we're looking for good news, right? So more jobs being added, that's good news, but we're certainly still very cautious and concerned because with that, COVID cases have increased as well too. So we're hoping that, that number one, the vaccine is helpful, and number two, people sort of change that dynamic of having less cases in the future. We probably have to change some of our activities, but overall, this was sort of the news investors were looking for.
Going into year end, what are you telling your clients as we get close to the Thanksgiving holiday and approach December here?
Well, I would say one of the things that you can do proactively right now is have a conversation with your tax professional and definitely your financial advisor, because you want to be mindful that taxes are probably going to go higher next year, if not, in the near future. And therefore, take a look at your portfolio after this week. Many of you might have some profit taking opportunities, especially if you have long-term capital gains. This is an area to be proactive. If you're in a position to give and make some donations before the end of the year, also a great thing. Do some gifting. So there's definitely things to be proactive about. And I would say focus on the long term. We've seen that time and time and again, that most importantly, you don't want to completely time the market, but you want to make sure that you do have time in the market.
One more political question for you, not to go back to it, but we see President Trump and his campaign team, fighting the election in courts in a number of courtrooms across the country. Does that play a role? Do you think investors really care that that's going on, even though on the other side you have Joe Biden, who assumes he will take the oath of office on January 20th?
So, Meg, that's a great question. And of course, we're talking finances, but from an investor standpoint, I think investors aren't really taking that concern so much to heart. I think they see the concern that, President Trump is going to fight this, but you can tell the market's up quite a bit. And so investors don't see that as so much of a risk to them as it pertains to their portfolios, their 401ks, their SEP IRA. So I think this enthusiasm is showing that they feel like better days are ahead, and they feel like they have the clarity that they needed to be able to make those decisions to hold their investments, if not add to their investments long term.
I'm usually not a fan of Mondays, but it's a pretty good Monday the way for the stock market and then the announcement from Pfizer. So let's hope we just roll the rest of the week in a positive territory. Winnie Sun, Managing Director of Sun Group Wealth Partners, always a pleasure. Thanks, Winnie.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. Take care.
You too.